Well, good afternoon. Welcome to a rerun of a session which we did on Friday. Unfortunately, the technology failed us on that occasion, and so we thought it would be a good idea to rerun this webinar, part of a series of webinars we're producing on global financial centers with a focus on Xi'an in China. And welcome to one and all. I'd just like to say a brief word of thanks to our sponsors. We could not do the kind of work we are doing without them. And so thank you very much. If you do want to get involved at all in helping with our work and sponsoring, please do get in touch with us. We have two speakers today on the webinar. First of all, Bo Jiao, otherwise known as our friend Tim, Chief Representative of Shaanxi Business in London. And Professor Michael Mainelli, Executive Chairman of the Xi'an Group, and we'll be talking about Xi'an and indeed its development as a financial centre. There will be time for questions towards the end of the webinar, and there's a place in the GoToWebinar dashboard where you can type in questions, which we'll pick up at the end. And we'll try and get through as many of those as we can during the session time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tim to talk to us about Xi'an, its past, present, and future. Over to you, Tim.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Tim Jiao. I'm the Chief Representative of Shaanxi Business in London. I wanted to say thank you to Michael and Mike for reorganizing this event. And I get it, Xi'an is probably very interesting for everyone. And please allow me to say thank you to the Shaanxi provincial government and the Xi'an municipal government for supporting me with important data preparing for this webinar. And today, I would like to take 15 minutes to talk about the past, present, and future of Xi'an, as well as its financial services industry. And the talk will be composed of two parts. The first part will look at Xi'an itself. The second part will look at the financial services industry. So, well, introducing Xi'an, to me personally, probably is one of the easiest and best work. You probably never heard of Xi'an city before. I do hope so, don't get me wrong. But you definitely heard of the terracotta warriors and horses. That's right. Xi'an is the hometown of the China's first emperor, Emperor Qin, and his well-known terracotta warriors and horses. Last August, I had the luck to invite Michael and the first official delegation from the city of London visit Xi'an and the terracotta warriors and horses. They told me they were really amazed by it. I believe so, because look at the pictures, how happy they were. And you wouldn't believe that actually we were sweating in and out. And it was actually the hottest day of last year in Xi'an city, but no one actually made any complaint about it. It's generally accepted that Xi'an city is the birthplace of Chinese civilization, because we have more than 13 different dynasties established the capital city in Xi'an. And if we put them all together, that'll be over 1,000 years. Xi'an had a different name in the past. It's called Chang'an. And Chang'an is a special name meaning the city of eternal peace. Xi'an people are really proud of that, because the historians always say, in the west we have Rome, whilst in the east we have Chang'an. Chang'an city actually was 60 times bigger than the size of Rome, and the Chang'an city was the first human city, has a population over 1 million people, and that happened 1,400 years ago. Right, to say Xi'an is the starting point of the Silk Road, it would be very difficult to ignore two dynasties, that is the Han Dynasty and Tang Dynasty. So please allow me to take 2 minutes just to share two little stories from the past in those two dynasties. I'm not sure you know that actually Han is the ethnicity and a cultural identity of the majority of 1.4 billion Chinese people. And that is to say that 1.2 billion Chinese people, they are Han people. It was actually during the Han Dynasty that the Silk Road was firstly explored by this courageous Marcus Zhangqian. He was captured and imprisoned for 13 years, twice, when he was traveling along the Silk Road. When he firstly started his journey, he had a formal delegation of over 100 people. But when he returned, he had only 2 men left, that is including himself. But he never lost his integrity and loyalty to the Han people. So look at the North Route and South Route he opened for the Silk Road. Nowadays, they have become part of the UNESCO's World Cultural Heritage, named the Chang'an-Tianshan Corridors Road Network. The other one is the Tang Dynasty. Probably, Tang Dynasty is the only one that most of the Chinese people would agree with you that was the best time in Chinese history. Overseas Chinese people like me would call ourselves Tangren, which means people of town. In the Tang Dynasty, we have this greatest Buddhist master Xuanzang. He is such a huge figure for the cross-cultural communication along the Silk Road. He traveled by foot over 6,000 kilometers from Chang'an to India. Buddhism as a form of religion was introduced to China in the late Han Dynasty, but it didn't gain its popularity and prosperity until the Tang Dynasty. It was also during this period of time that Buddhism spread over to the Korean Peninsula and Japan. Master Xuanzang spent 16 years studying Buddhism in India, and he became the best and well-respected and well-known scholar. When he returned to Chang'an, the royal emperor welcomed him really warmly by calling him the royal brother, and also helped him to build this landmark in Xi'an called the Big Wild Goose Builder, to help to preserve the over 1,300 Buddhist scripts, and also build several royal temples to help to do the translation. Master Xuanzang probably translated the most Buddhism scripts from ancient India to Chinese. So since then, Xi'an became the Buddhism center for China and the world. Right. So in the year 2013, China's President Xi Jinping was invited for a state visit to Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan's President Kalimov showed him a map of Silk Road and pointing at the city of Samarkand by saying that Samarkand is the capital city of Silk Road. It is my hometown. President Xi Jinping responded by pointing at Xi'an, saying, well, Xi'an is my hometown. It is the starting point of the Silk Road. Since then, the Belt and Road Initiative was proposed to the international community for future international cooperation. And very unexpectedly, President Xi's statement about Xi'an helped resolve a big dispute between two ancient cities in China called Xi'an and Luoyang, the arguing who is the starting point of the Silk Road. Without being prejudiced, I'll follow President Xi Jinping's suggestion. And a couple of years ago, US President Donald Trump was invited to visit China. President Xi Jinping told him that if you want to know China for the past 50 years, you should go to Shanghai. If you want to know China for the past 500 years, you should visit Beijing. And if you want to know China for the past 5,000 years, you should come to Xi'an. And recently, he paid another visit to Xi'an city and also encouraging the people at hometown to support the nation back on its track. Xi'an nowadays is a leading higher education center in China. The total number of top national universities in Xi'an city is on the top list of the National League. And on the other hand, very importantly, Xi'an is absolutely the number one hub for the private higher education in China. I'm saying that because every 1 in 4 Chinese students that go into private university, they will study in Xi'an. I have this very unique case called Xi'an Jiao Liverpool University, which is a remarkable international cooperation between UK and China. between Xi'an Jiao University and University of Liverpool. And it has been rated as #1 private university on the National League table for many years. And Xi'an is very important and really proud of its high-tech development as well. Xi'an's high-tech development zone, since its established in 1997, nowadays is the leading and pioneer high-tech development zones amongst those 146 in China. It is very innovative. In the year 2018, it invented a new concept for the development of technology for the Qian core technology. It looks at 8 areas, including optronics, AI, aerospace, biotechnology, IT, new material, new energy, and intelligence manufacture. Xi'an now is facing a new development era, which is called the Great Xi'an Development Era. By saying this, we have to look at the Xi'an state new area. It is one of the 19 China state-level new areas. It has 5 constituent cities, and each one of them has actually a similar size of the current urban area of Xi'an City. By merging this huge piece of land, Xi'an's future foreseeable development would be uncapped and unlimited. So please allow me to repeat, Xi'an City's GDP is well over 900 billion RMB, and the city population over 12 million people, and its land area is well over 10,000 square meters, which is ranked in top 10 in China. And Xi'an is one of the most convenient transportation hubs in China. It's well situated and connected within the modern high-speed rails network, and it could be reached within hours from most of the major cities in China, and also some of them within just 1 hour. Now, Xi'an is working really hard to be a Silk Road financial center. Now, let's look at, the financial service part of the Xi'an city. I'd like to share with you that, by the end of 2019, Xi'an, as the capital city of Shaanxi province, has merely 70 public traded companies in Xi'an, and that's including 12 in Hong Kong and some of the on the stock markets. And also we have only 136 traded on NEQ, which is a secondary market. Well, Xi'an is feeling a little bit sorry for this figure, and Xi'an is really aware of its disadvantages within the financial services industry. So since 2018, we have proposed this Dragon Scale plan with the objectives to double the amount of financial services firms and also the public traded companies. And through this, year's plan, that they are aware of its lack of knowledge in the financial services industry, lack of experienced capital markets professionals and talents, and the small number of financial services firms. They are aiming to working really hard to improve, Xi'an's financial service capabilities. By saying this, and China's central government is really supportive to Xi'an's financial service industry development. I would like to share, a very important case of IPO last year happened in Xi'an, which is called the Bank of Xi'an. Bank of Xi'an, through its IPO, successfully raised funds over 2 billion RMB to support its future developments. And also here, I would like to share a very important investment opportunity that, in Xi'an, we have a similar Bank of Chang'an, which is they are preparing for their IPO at the moment. So if you're interested in investing in Xi'an, you should pay attention to that. As I mentioned just a moment ago, China's central government is really supportive to Xi'an's financial service industry development. China's PBOC, China's central bank, has established its Xi'an branch in northwest China. That the Xi'an branch is not only covering Xi'an city or the Shaanxi province, it's actually covering the whole 5 provinces and autonomous region in northwest China, including Shaanxi, Gansu, Ningxia, Qinghai, and Xinjiang. And Xi'an's insurance and banking industry is developing really fast. I'm not going to, speak about this data, but I would like to share, how the foreign banks and foreign financial firms they're doing in Xi'an. So ever since the year 2001, the first foreign banks established this business in Xi'an city. 20 years on, so far, we have 6 foreign banks established business in Xi'an. That's including HSBC, Standard Chartered, Hana Bank from Korea, DBS Bank from Singapore, and Fubon Bank from Taiwan. And they're all making a very successful and profitable business in Xi'an. And continuously, their growth rate is well over 100%. So that is, we are really, really proud of that part of Xi'an's development. Now Xi'an is really working hard on its way to build a Silk Road Financial Center by proposing and implementing this Xi'an Silk Road Financial Center Development Action Plan. They actually made very specific targets on each category. So they will look at 5 key areas to enhance Xi'an's financial capabilities, including number 1, complete its financial organizational system, to engage with the overseas financial markets, to create industrial focused financial services, to develop financial districts, and also to improve its financial ecosystem, including policies, including professional and talents and infrastructures, etc. So Xi'an now, in the past 40 years, opening policy as a national strategy being implemented in China and is regarded as the key element for China's economic triumph. And Xi'an is really aware of that. And Xi'an is keeping open to the international cooperation. So here, Xi'an will, carry on working with the international financial community, as well as keep working with Xi'an Group on various sectors of the financial services industry. So, for instance, we would like to propose to working with Xi'an Group to establish the Silk Road Research Financial Institutes and to encourage multidisciplinary financial cooperation. For instance, encouraging the research collaboration, encouraging the education cooperation, and as well as industrial exchanges. We can organize seminars, conferences, and forums in Xi'an City together. So all in all, Xi'an is really open to the world, and that's all my slides and introduction about Xi'an today. And I thank you very much for paying attention to Xi'an today. I wish you all stay healthy and well, and hopefully we'll invite you after the COVID-19 success. Thank you very much.
Tim, thank you. That was absolutely super. And I'm afraid I'm starting to share some of your prejudices about Xi'an, although I do remember that day, and by gosh, was it hot. I just a couple of soft remarks before I get into some harder points. Firstly, this long-term friendship is real. The picture on the right shows me back in the 2000s in Xi'an with a Xi'an hat on. And in fact, Tim very kindly organized for the donation of a terracotta warrior replica, Asian replica, to the City of London. And we are just going through the process of trying to launch this, but need to wait for the COVID lockdown to end. Another point I might show you is on the following slide, where Xi'an very kindly, during the height of this crisis, we sent some materials over to China. This was the World Traders in the city and Xi'an and others. And very kindly, they flowed back last month. Tim organized some 20,000 PPE units to be delivered to London, and they were given to Morden College, a care home for 450 residents down in Blackheath. I might also just, by way of a kind of a personal touch, show you the following slide, which is that, believe it or not, we at Xi'an, when we were talking about marketing our book back in 2000, chose, in fact, the Terracotta Warriors for clean business cuisine. So read the secrets they have guarded for centuries. But that's for another day. Meanwhile, let's have a serious look, though, at what some of the leading centers in China have been doing. For us, the Global Financial Centers Index began in 2005, first published in 2007. But in 2005, one of the areas we took significant flack from, really I might point out up until perhaps about 2012 or 2013, was our confidence in the continued growth of China. And at the time that the index was launched, sure, Singapore and Hong Kong featured, but definitely not Beijing, Shanghai, etc. And now we have Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Chengdu. So the index has really moved. And you can see here this just strong and confident growth amongst the Chinese centers. So we looking here, you can notice the most recent entry was Guangzhou, coming in with a 9% increase in the ratings, as in fact does Chengdu. So when they enter the index, they can grow very rapidly. The following slide simply surmises what might happen if Xi'an entered the index in 100th place with a rating equivalent to the 100th place center in GFCI 27 and had a comparable performance. And that would put it up in 47th position really within 3 years. So other centers in that area would be Prague, Jersey, Doha, the Cayman Islands. Another way to guesstimate what Xi'an's performance might look like quite soon is to note that it is the 9th largest city in China and therefore comparable, say, to Dallas in the United States, Surat in India, or Essen in Germany. So again, some interesting points here. And as I turn to kind of, its strengths, I think one of the things that we have to remember, particularly in the West, and particularly with this broadcast coming out of London, is London is a city of 9 million and Xi'an is a city of 12. So on comparable bases over some period of time, it has a 33% size advantage. And these things can add up quite rapidly. So what are the strengths that we might pick out? Well, it's an extremely strong tourist destination, particularly for central China, a top-tier city, and as Tim emphasized, the location of various rail and air trade routes, but also this Silk Road initiative. We've had a couple of webinars already on the BRI, Belt Road Initiative, and the Silk Road, and it's without doubt that Xi'an is based there, but also comes with strong high-tech industry strengths. As Tim emphasized, a lot of highly trained engineers and scientists, center for manufacturing, aerospace. In fact, the space industry in China, the component supplies are largely centered around Xi'an. So extremely well positioned. And as we look at the next slide, we begin to see that the potential for development Tim has already capitalized on. So we have the FinTech building on this recently launched AI innovation development pilot zone, an actual focus on Belt Road Initiative trade. Like many other centers we've seen, Singapore, Dubai, Nur Sultan, a center for international arbitration, which, given the likely scale of BRI trade, will probably be kept busy, as many arbitration centers are over international trade. And then on top of all this, Tim and the team in Xi'an have clearly acknowledged that they have some current gaps. And of course, recognizing those gaps is the first step to addressing them. So a good starting position there for growing talent. So Tim emphasized in this slide 10 action areas that Xi'an is undertaking. I don't want to belittle them. One could argue that these are all good, sensible actions that any up-and-coming center would like to pursue. And I would agree with it. So it's a good, solid, well-integrated plan. But there are a couple of things just worth picking out. Again, that BRI focus gives Xi'an potentially a teensy bit of an edge. Things like green and energy finance are things you'd expect to see in a number of other centers. But don't laugh at the cultural tourism-linked financial services argument. This has often been used, for example, to place London high on the list as a good place to go and do business, but also to unwind or appreciate the culture in the evenings. And Xi'an is taking in huge numbers of tourists on a regular basis. This is also analogous to the strategies pursued by some of the offshore centers. I might point out here, particularly, say, the BVI or other places where you can come and have a bit of relaxation, but also conduct business. So I'm personally am bullish on Xi'an. It's not going to be an overnight success. It's going to be a hard slog, but the team there have clearly recognized that. And I think it's now time to turn to you, the audience, about Q&A. So over to you, Mike.
Michael, Tim, thank you very much. Fascinating as always. And we do have some time for questions. And first of all, we've got a question really asking whether Xi'an sees itself in competition with other Chinese financial centers, or whether the idea is to complement other Chinese centers by specialization in specific aspects of financial services. Tim, one for you, I think.
Thank you very much, Mike. Right. So as I said, people in the Western world probably generally will ignore the fact that China is quite huge, quite big. That China is so diversified, and China is the equivalent size of the United States. The United States has more than 50 states, different states, and China has more than 30 different provinces. And the northwest region of China, in particular Shaanxi province in Xi'an city, is situated as a gateway to China, to the northwest region. Very recently, just I think it was yesterday, that China's central government published a new development proposal, how to explore and redevelop, the northwest region of China. And Xi'an is usually regarded as the gateway for the west part of China to the northwest region of China. And because, it has various different level of resources and advantages and disadvantages, Xi'an is really aware of that. And that's why, because its endowment of resources and connections is different, so Xi'an is positioning itself as the culture center, as the education center, as the technological center, and also a regional center for social and economic development. Most importantly, as the starting point of the Silk Road. We're saying that's because historically we are the starting point of the Silk Road. But nowadays, in the Belt Road Initiative, we wanted to be an important regional center in terms of financial services, international trade, to link, the east part of China and also to the west, to Central Asia, to Europe, via, the rail connections, via the aerospace technology, etc., etc. So I do see, Xi'an has own unique advantages and endowment, which is the other cities don't have. But we are not trying to promote, a negative circulation of competition. We're trying to work collaboratively, as I said before. We're opening to international cooperation as well, so that we can build a better Xi'an city for all of us and build better cities of other cities along the Silk Road. I think that's the aim of, China's Belt and Road Initiative as well. Hope that answers your question.
Well, I think Tim makes an excellent point there, that it's very tough, I think, for some in the West to realize two things. One is just the immense scale of change. I went back to Xi'an, as Tim noted, last August, and prior to that I'd been back there, I think it was 11 years earlier, and just the scale of change was crazy. But the second thing is this bit about a lot of people seem to believe that China is a highly centralized country, and clearly there are aspects of it that are more centralized than they might be, say, for example, in the United States, Canada, or Germany. But China doesn't fall wholly into the highly centralized country structure that, say, perhaps France or England and Britain fall into. It's much more, certainly at the level of business, diverse. And in the United States and Canada, so Canada with a population of 30 million is there with Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, and Toronto as four centers that feature in our index. And in America, the list is even longer. And that list also changes. We've seen San Francisco rocket up through the index as the increasing reliance on fintech and finances has made itself manifest. So I do believe that this jostling, not just for position, not overall position, but also for a niche, will be a feature of all the Chinese centers, perhaps other than Shanghai and Beijing.
Thanks very much, both. And that feeds into a further question we've had, is to what extent Xi'an is emerging as a financial center because of its location and the skill hub that exists around Xi'an, and to what extent is it a matter of central planning? So are you looking to central government for direction, or is this growing organically out of the industry and location you find yourselves in?
Thank you very much, Michael. Mike. Yeah, Xi'an, as I said, they have put a actionable plan as either the Dragon's Gate plan or the Silk Road Financial Services Center. It's a huge ambition, but also on the other hand, it's tangible as well. Xi'an is, by saying this, is trying to promote international cooperation. Xi'an is really clearly aware of its disadvantages. As I have read what Michael's slides about the Global Financial Center Index. If Xi'an is participating in that now, its position is obviously not very, very advantageous compared with Beijing or Shanghai, or even Guangzhou or Shenzhen. We wouldn't do so well, but Xi'an has its own potential. Not only just the original center, Xi'an has always, well, through the, over so many thousands of years, Xi'an has been open-minded, engaging with international cooperation. And, our advantages is that education, technology, universities, researchers, collaboration, that's what I've been, promoting and proposing to the international community that we should work together. And Xi'an is willing in a friendship attitude to engage more with international cooperation in terms of financial services industry. And we know that, our position is not ideal at the beginning, but we are keen to work together with friends all over the world to improve its facilities, capabilities, and abilities. So, so Xi'an is, really well positioned within not only from the central government, but also clearly aware of its position within the Belt and Road Initiative, and geographically, trade, and also, many other sectors. So we do see huge opportunities and potential for Xi'an City, and we will welcome, international, more multifaceted cooperation.
Yeah, I think also, Tim, it might be worth you just mentioning a word about the intermediate level, which is, of course, Shaanxi province, which itself is quite a sizable, it would be a sizable country in its own right if it were not part of China. And so you've got a tripartite pull here, that your President Xi showing favoritism, but also, of course, the provincial backing to this, as well as the city backing.
Yeah, we get another question around the complementarity. Really, is that just someone asking how Xi'an will be complementary to sort of Shanghai and Shenzhen, if you think about the geography is spread across China. But what are the roles of the leading financial centers in China in terms of their linkage with the upcoming and emerging financial centers?
Yeah. The other thing I would like to mention as a complementary to the financial center is that people probably don't know that Xi'an City is actually a northern city of China, and Shaanxi province, 2/3 of the Shaanxi province actually is over the Qinling-Huanghe River, which is northern part of China, and it has abundant natural resources, reserves. You probably know that Shaanxi province, northern Shaanxi province, has huge amounts of gas reserves, natural gas reserves, oil reserves, and coal mines. And nowadays we're touching upon, a very important industry in Shaanxi province. Shaanxi province is really, heavy on manufacturing in terms of energy. including coal mines, including oil, and including chemical energy. Now they are trying to encourage, utilize, the high technology, including how to chemicalize those coals, which would be really pollutions in the past. Nowadays, it would be a clean energy. And that's why, they need more financial support and also a more complete financial service industry to support the energy industry in Shaanxi province to transform it into green energy and clean energy for the regional, for China and for the world. And I think that, technology industry focused financial services and energy industry focused financial services, and also clean energy or green energy industry focused financial services will be a huge advantages for Shaanxi and Xi'an city, and also would be complementary to Shanghai, as a pure international financial center, or Beijing as, China's political center. And Xi'an also, they are encouraging the city because the abundance of tourism, I know it's arguable, but the tourism industry is huge as well. That, is requiring, all sorts of financial services industry to support its development. So I think those are the areas that Xi'an is unique, which would be also complementary to other regional financial centers development.
Thank you very much. We've got a question in about how easy it is for expats, for people from overseas, to live in and do business in Xi'an. What would be the experience of someone who wanted to come up and set up business in your city?
Well, because I am the business representative of Shaanxi Department of Commerce in London, we are actually, thank you very much. If some friends in the audience are asking this question, welcome to contact me, after this seminar. I will help you to give you more detailed information. But first of all, Xi'an is really trying to keep up with the national opening policy, not, in terms of welcoming international expats to come and stay, work, and set up business in Xi'an. In terms of policies, first of all, immigration-wise, it's the central government is simplifying the process, and also for tourism and visiting wise, that you can get 142 hours exemption to visit Xi'an without any need a visa if you're going to a third country after your visit in Xi'an. But in terms of setting up business in Xi'an, we have the free trade zone, which will help you to have the best solutions to the tax, and also the best procedures to help you, and very efficient procedures, online procedures, and even through WeChat apps to help you to register your company in Xi'an. And also, we're building on financial service industries to help you to have the best solution to have your money safely invested in Xi'an, and you're free to take your profit back to your home country if you want to. So there are many different facets of this matter, and I would like to, as the representative of Shaanxi and Xi'an in London, together with Xi'an, Michael, and Mike, to provide the best service and welcoming friends to visit, invest, and stay and live in Xi'an.
Thank you very much, Tim. We all look forward to coming when we can to come and visit and see you. A further question is about whether there are particular links with the UK business universities and business schools. You mentioned obviously the link with Liverpool University, but are there links with UK business schools currently in Xi'an, or is that an opportunity that's yet to be tapped?
It's actually a good opportunity because, Xi'an's advantage is its education, and there are so many industries that's in need of a huge amount of talents. And I have many friends, they wanted to, they either wanted to go to visit Xi'an, or they have experienced Xi'an, had a taste of Xi'an, and they absolutely like it. And my friends, they're in the education industry. They have sent me, messages all the time and asking for recommendations. Can you recommend some business schools in the UK, in Europe, in the world? Can you just invite them to come to Xi'an? We can talk about, setting up joint ventures and business schools together in Xi'an to import and invite the scholars and professors come and conduct researches and teaching in Xi'an, because there's a huge amount of university graduates, and also including the university itself. I'll give you a few examples, like Xi'an Foreign Studies University, Northwest University, Xi'an Jiao University. Well, Xi'an Jiao University already worked with Liverpool University, had this remarkable joint venture, and Northwest University is looking into business schools from city of London or European cities. And Xi'an Foreign Studies, they asked me just a few days ago, can you recommend a good school that would help us to train forex trades? And those are just really huge opportunities at the moment. So please welcome to contact me or yourselves, that we can help friends to conduct this kind of cooperation.
Okay, we have a couple of further questions and not a lot of time, so I think we'll need to be very brief in answering the last couple of questions. The first one is from CBS Advanced Tech, which provides financial solutions, particularly in the traveling tourism business, and is endorsed by the University of Sheffield and has links to Sheffield Tech Park and Business Sheffield. And the question is that when Xi'an becomes a world-known financial center, will it promote economic and cultural exchanges and the development of the tourism financial industry for the tourist financial services at the same time as developing the links to technology?
Well, I think one of the noticeable things in Xi'an, one of the notable things in Xi'an has been the growth in tourism. It's quite a balanced growth too. People tend to think only of the terracotta warriors, and they are important, clearly. But Xi'an is built out from that in things like its relationship with the Tang Dynasty, its relationship with some of the other monuments. So I think there's a lot going there. But I think this angle of shared tourism cooperation is particularly important. But Tim, please go ahead and fill in.
Thank you, Michael. That's well mentioned about exactly. People generally will think about just about the terracotta warriors and horses, but actually, Xi'an's tourism resources is so abundant. Like in the very recently, in the past 10 years, that a huge amount of cultural tourism industry is developing fastly in Xi'an. In the south part of Xi'an, they built this grand town paradise theme park, which, because of that, it has attracted a lot of international investment. For instance, the W Hotel, one of the grandest hotel that had its huge hotel resort in Xi'an, just by the side of the South Lake. It's a beautiful view. And also, I would like to mention about Town-West Market project. Town-West Market is an investment of 8 billion RMB that we're trying to rejuvenate the Tang Dynasty trade markets, which is 1,400 years ago. They built the #1 China's private museum to demonstrate the Silk Road heritage and the culture, and which is absolutely worth visiting. And they have business clusters of hotels, antique trade centers, and also shopping malls. And very interestingly, they built a Silk Road culture route, pedestrian streets, which is including over 22 country and national pavilions. And I think it's a huge opportunity there. UK or France or Italy, many other European countries are interested to take advantage of that a national pavilion to demonstrate your products and tourism resources to further engage within the Xi'an's tourism market. And as I mentioned before, Xi'an is not just Xi'an itself, it's the gateway to the northwest region of China, and also a very important center for the West China. And so if my friends in Sheffield, Mr. Wang, he's running business in Sheffield for many years, and he's actually from the border province of Shaanxi province, and it actually has closer ties to Xi'an city. That's very interesting. The border provinces, they all know Xi'an city, they want to come to Xi'an city, and if they see something that, introducing UK and promoting France or Italy, that they would definitely be interested in through your network to go to visit those cities, which will be a very good connection for those cities to promote tourism industry and business links.
Thank you very much, both. Just very briefly, as we are pretty much out of time, two further questions. The first one is with Xi'an's positioning in northwest China, just a question about whether there's a possibility of developing Xi'an as a Chinese center for Islamic finance, given its links to neighboring countries. And just wondering whether that's part of the mix.
I think this friend mentioned a very good question because, Xi'an during the Tang Dynasty became the world center. There's the reason. It's not only because it's a political center, also because its openness to the world. Yeah. During the Tang Dynasty, the central government was taking foreign expats. It's taking very high-ranking government officials. Like people like Marco Polo will take positions in the central government, advising the emperors. Behind the Muslim quarter of the Bao Tower landmark of Xi'an City, central Xi'an City. During the Tang Dynasty, they have left a huge legacy called the Muslim quarter. We have more than 50,000 Muslim people that actually been inhabiting in that particular area for over 1,000 years. Nowadays, it has one of the most important Muslim mosque in Xi'an, in the northwest region. And they are still praying, they're still practicing, and they have been very important part of the Xi'an's diversified culture genetics system, and also they have been very important part of the Xi'an's cultural identity. They're serving really delicious food. Michael been there, and yeah, and also they are promoting international ties as well. Last year, we brought, the city of Croydon, who is the mayor his husband is a Muslim as well, and we led, some of the Muslim schools visiting Xi'an as well to visited that historical site. They felt ever so excited being able to communicate the Korean and Muslim with people in Xi'an City. So Xi'an City is very diversified, very open-minded, very friendly. So don't worry about other negative factors. So welcome to Xi'an. I guarantee that Xi'an is equal and it is open and friendly.
Thank you very much, Tim. And it's a key message, I think, to hear. The very last question, I think, again, you're going to be enthusiastically and positive, is how open Xi'an is to human capital coming from the world in the field of financial services.
Well, because of the sheer amount of universities and research centers, the welcoming, talents and professionals coming to those universities every year. Northwest High Tech, Polytech University, Northwest University, Xi'an Architecture University, Xi'an Electronical Engineering University. They all every year come to the UK, working with, Chinese embassy in the an education counselor to attract those graduates. Not only Chinese students studying in the UK. Because, we all know that UK is probably one of the top nations that Chinese students like to study in. So we have huge number of Chinese students who graduate every year. We're welcoming these graduates coming to carry on study or work and taking positions in those institutes. And also we're welcoming, graduates whenever you're from Europe or US or rest of the world studying in the UK, coming to, taking up internships, works, develop your career in Xi'an City. And all the, sectors there are welcome international talents as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. We are out of time, but it's been a fascinating session. Thank you very much, Tim, for your insight into Xi'an, and Michael for your thoughts. We'll give you a little round of applause on behalf of the audience. One of these days we'll be able to applaud you in person, but for the moment virtually. And just finishing off to say that If you want to get involved with the way that we look at financial and commercial centers across the world, we have the GFCI, the Global Green Finance Index, and the Smart Centers Index. Please get in touch if you'd like to be involved or learn more. And finally, the Global Financial Centers Index 28 will be published in this September, and we will be publicizing it at the time. But please do, in the meantime, take the GFCI survey. The link is shown on the net. There would be a recording of this session, which we'll put up onto the website as soon as possible. And so you'll be able to relive the excitement or share it with colleagues and friends. But thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Michael. And thank you to all of you for attending. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.